Hello and welcome to chapter 121 of the DC Alliance podcast. With me, as always, is Clay. Clay, how you doing this evening?
I am doing pretty good. Today was a pretty simple day. Was expecting rain, and thankfully there isn't any. It got moved. I guess I'm not a meteorologist. I can't tell you how it happened, but it looks like instead of today, it's going to be raining tomorrow. But everybody knows I've been in the market for a new job, but I got a call yesterday from a job that I applied to. I'm pretty sure that I was just like super tired at like 2 or 3 in the morning and was pressing apply to like everything on Indeed just randomly.
Why
And
not?
and I got a call from a town that is like literally just 6 minutes away. And they're like, "Hey, we got your resume. Let's go ahead and see if we can meet up or have a conversation." And I was like, "Oh yeah, why not? Let's see what's going on." And I called, and this dude was selling the job. Like he was doing
Ooh.
whoever he is working for, they need to give this man a raise. I will say that. And he was giving me all the good information. Like I was thinking, oh man, if I take this job, I may need to like take a break from podcasting a little bit. But like every single day that I podcast with the GUA and my other shows, they like close early on those days. So I was like, oh
Ooh.
man, like everything is lining up. And then he goes, "Oh, by the way, your position would be at $10 an hour and you'd be working 12-hour days." And I'm like, "You just said that you'd be closing the shop early." Well, because of the business that they do, I would be driving a vehicle even though the main store is closed. So I
Ooh.
was like, okay, strike one, strike two with the 12-hour days. And then he said, you would need to be going door to door. Guys, it is Texas. Today we hit 104 degrees. I am not working for anybody who is asking me to walk up to people's doors and asking for money. That's what this business does. It's basically like, hey, you bought this refrigerator and a payment is due. And I'm thinking in my head, we have the internet. It is 2022. Why are you going up to people's doors asking for a payment? Like, what in the world is going
You
on?
think all the older people in Texas use their like iPhone apps to pay their bills?
S- I do. I pay
I know
like
you do. Yeah,
I am in
older
this I
people.
am in this small
How many fridges have you bought
in my lifetime or here.
in your lifetime?
Maybe
One?
one.
Maybe? Like, that's what I mean. Like you're like, I do. I was like, no, you don't. You don't pay any fridge bills because you don't buy fridge. Not yet.
Oh, jeez. No, but it's just like, why would you just wait for somebody to be like, Hey, by the way, your payment is due today." Like,
They're not
this
going
is
to be
why you
happy
have
about that.
this is why you have phones. This is why you set reminders. This is why you just like log in. You don't have to be bothered by anybody and you do it at your own time. People, it is 2022. Live in the fucking future. I'm sorry. I don't care how country this state is. You need to evolve. And apparently, due to some decisions that were made last week, it really doesn't look like this country is evolving
I
at
was
all.
going to say that message might need to go out across your nation today.
I'm
Well, not
just
across
saying.
your nation. There's a lot of states where that the procedure is still legal, but the whole thing around it is absolutely devastating as well. Clay is 100% right. But this is this is not we're not a political podcast here, thankfully. Although that is devastating, I think there's not many people that listen to our show that wouldn't agree with us.
Human rights is not political. I'm just going to say
Yeah,
that also.
yeah, that's what
But
you've been saying
yeah,
too. I said that I don't think there's anybody that's listening that doesn't agree with the
yeah.
gist of what where we both are, where we both stand on this. But before we got a low on news this week, Clay, of course. we found out today that Harley Quinn will probably get a trailer tomorrow. So yay, of course. 3, 2, 1 DC Alliance.
Like I don't know why we keep missing these. Why is it that they're just like, hey, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, DCA should talk about one of these trailers, but let's wait until like a week later.
6 days later, to be exact, which is
It's
hilarious.
so stupid.
It's just, but we do have a season finale of Superman and Lois that drops, comes out
Yes, we
tomorrow
do.
as well. Uh, Christopher Evans says hello. Hello, Chris.
That Christopher Evans, that Chris Evans over
Yes,
on
that
Twitter.
Chris.
Yes.
So I guess we'll get into the network plug before we get into the show. We
Yes.
are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance with 8 shows in total. On Mondays is Slice of Film. That's with Katie and guest hosts Mark and Sarah. They take a look at new movies that drop, old movies, and everything in between. I think is Jurassic Park World Dominion the most recent episode of Slice of Film. I think it still is.
Yes, it still is. Next
Yeah.
week, though, I will go ahead and plug that. Next week is going to be Elvis. Me, Sarah, and Katie reviewed that movie yesterday.
I don't
It
think
was
I've seen a negative review come across my Twitter, like any tweets about it from even people that I just follow, not even like critics. I've just seen it universally praised. So I'm really interested to hear all 3 of your thoughts, especially you, because I found out last week, listeners, that he was a gigantic Elvis fan. So you learn something new every day, I guess. So yeah, that rotates bi-weekly with Ranger Alliance with Clay and rotating guest hosts of Jake and Joe. They take a look at everything and anything Power Rangers. The TV show they're going back through. They look at the comics and the news that's dropping right now with the Netflix deal. We're getting stuff, little tidbits trickling out almost weekly, not quite weekly, but 2 of the past 3 weeks, I think, to be exact. We got the female showrunner, and then a week before confirming the guy that was everyone thought was in place to run everything. So I enjoy when you guys talk about the new content, but I also enjoy the old episodes. Those are fantastic. On Tuesdays is this show, DC Alliance, with myself and Clay. We got you covered on anything DC, which is very little at this moment. We Wednesdays is superhero discussions. I'm into Spectacular Spider-Man, so don't worry about that. That show is fantastic, and I'm enjoying every second of that. On Thursdays is Star Wars Alliance with Katie and Clay. They just finished up Obi-Wan Kenobi. I really think there could be a second season from what ended, and I loved it. I just want to say, like, I posted in our GUA chat, listeners. I don't think there's a bit of Star Wars that I don't like. I haven't seen Rebels, but everything else I've watched, I haven't. I think there's
as
some episodes of Clone Wars I've missed, but everything I've watched, I've just really enjoyed.
as our animation guy, I think you would love the
Oh, I've heard
storytelling
great things
in
for Rebels.
Rebels.
I did see the Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul 10-minute
Okay.
thing, like mini episode of that episode, because I was told how fantastic it was. And spoiler, it was fantastic. So eventually I would love to get into that show as well. We just have so much. The Boys, Obi-Wan just finished, and Superman and Lois, thankfully, is ending up. So that's that. On Fridays is Marvel Alliance with Chris and Brent. They get you covered on anything and everything Marvel. I just remembered while I was saying those shows that Miss Marvel is going through right now, which is, I think, quite possibly is actually is Boys 1 and Miss Marvel 2 right now, because Kenobi's over, for the shows that I'm loving that is ongoing. I love Miss Marvel. I don't think there's anything that I've disliked so far in the 3 episodes. So I'm excited. The guys really do a great job breaking that down. So check those guys out. On Saturdays, bi-weekly, is a walk through the multiverse with Joe. But as the Boys is on, Joe is on weekly. So I joined Joe for the last episode where we discussed Hero Gasm. Hot take. I thought they overhyped it a little bit. I thought that
It
there
was
was going to be a
something that
lot
I
more
was afraid.
crazy.
Yeah, it was something that I was afraid that was going to happen. I still have not seen Hero Gasm yet. As we are recording this, I am midway through the episode before that, the musical
Okay.
episode. So I will be finishing that tonight. But looking forward to how they portray hero gasm, but I
I'm
was
glad I
like, it
didn't say
was
anything. I'm glad I didn't
well, no,
say
it was
anything
just
specific.
it was everybody else saying stuff
Yeah.
on Twitter, and I was like, I don't know if it's going to live up to the hype
I
because everybody is
still
hyping it up.
I still really enjoyed the episode and how they do it with the story and moving everyone's plot and like it it's great. It's that is perfect. I just thought that that little part was a little bit overhyped. That's all. That's in
Yeah.
my opinion. Now, I could be like a lot. I see a lot of praise for it too. So it was a fantastic episode. So check Joe out. That those drop Sundays and Sundays monthly is World's Finest True Believers with Chris Balga. That's where Chris and a guest take a look at a comic of guest choice. I know that Wonder Meg joined Chris on his most recent episode to look at a Wonder Woman book. I am blanking Chris on
Dead
the name of the
Earth.
book. Dead Earth. Thank you, Clay. That's why you bring in the big bucks there. So I'm interested to listen to that. I haven't yet, but I haven't downloaded. So check that out. Uh, I'm sure it's a great episode. Chris does great work there. DC Alliance, Marvel Alliance, and Star Wars Alliance also have their own podcast feeds. Search Marvel Alliance, DC Alliance, or Star Wars Alliance if you want just Marvel content, DC content, or Star Wars content. But if you want all 8 shows, stay subscribed to the Geek Ultimate Alliance on your podcast app of choice. Also, DC Alliance goes live on the Geekverse YouTube channel Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Star Wars Alliance goes live on the Geekverse YouTube channel Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And Marvel Alliance goes live on the Geekverse YouTube channel Thursdays at 9:10 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have a Patreon, 2 tiers, a $1 tier and a $5 tier. The $1 tier is basically a tip jar. You like what we're doing and you want to help us out any way you can. And the $5 tier is where you get your extras. You get your ad-free episodes, early access to episodes, and Patreon exclusive episodes. I dropped 2 of my top 5s last week. They were so much fun. I'm kind of racking my brain to do it, and it sparked a little bit of a discussion in the GUA chat today about Snell. Snell kind of called me out for saying salt if I didn't have salt vinegar chips in my top 5. More importantly, number 1 was I a true Canadian. I
But
told
I
Elsa,
think more so it was
hey,
I don't think it was salt and vinegar. I think what it
Miss
was the
Vicky's.
fact that it was Miss Vicky's that needed to be on your list. And I kind of have to agree. As we had this discussion on if that brand was in America or not, because Snell was lied to. Apparently, it is in America. It is a little bit harder to find in Texas. I don't know how in the wild it is across the U.S., but I will say this: as somebody who grew up on Lay's potato chips and
Yeah.
Doritos, the original Lay's potato chips and the original nachos cheese Doritos are my least favorite chips.
I will say sometimes I get in the mood where I do really enjoy a plain Lay's potato chip. Not often, but there are times with a glass of Pepsi, it tastes fantastic. But there's so many other flavors that you're kind of wasting it
See,
just getting plain.
that's your problem right there. You're drinking Pepsi. Like that's a big no-no for one. Like, why Pepsi?
It's just the first thing that I don't have one greater than the
See,
other. If
see,
Coke was on sale next week, I guess what I would be buying? Coke.
see. Have you done a top 5 sodas? Because
No, I gave up sodas for, like, years, so that's not a thing
oh
I'm
wow.
passionate about. Like, if you listen to the chips, you could hear the passion in my voice coming
See,
through,
I
Clay.
I will tell you this. I will tell you this. I absolutely hate the taste of water. Absolutely hate it.
I love it. I love water.
And I joked around with Sarah and Katie yesterday when we were doing the review for Elvis that I am pretty sure I am like borderline diabetic, if not completely diabetic. But like I I just crave caffeine all the time. And I think that's partially to blame for my father who woke me up every single morning and like took me to go get donuts and gave me a large Dr. Pepper to drink with it every single time. But, you know, I you know what? I may steal your idea and put a top 5 sodas in the
I don't
Patreon.
have a incorporation on the I don't have a patent on the top 5s. I actually stole it from one of my favorite YouTube channels. They drop them on Fridays. They call them Top 5 Fridays. And I was gonna do that too, but that was once upon a time ago. But it's also the Marvel Alliance guys are doing the We Can Watch This All Day MCU rewatch, and it's fantastic. So check that out, along with Clay and Snell reviewing Batman 89 comics, waiting for the final one. Katie going through Star Wars comics with her husband, and Joe's Multiverse Minutes as well. So we have a lot on Patreon, and also I'm cooking up something else behind the scenes as well. I think it's
Oh, well, I talked to you last episode that we did with the Superman and Lois review, and I said I was going to pitch an episode to Joe.
I got the telephone message of that on our recording for a walk through the multiverse for the boys. I was
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I was part of this first part of the conversation. Now I'm part of the end part. I missed the middle part. Joe's telling me about it.
So Joe is on board. For anybody who wants to know, we are, and if you haven't already listened to Ranger Alliance, we are planning a top 5 with Hines, and it's gonna be with a Walk Through the Multiverse Joe, top 5 franchises that can make an MCU like franchise and survive. Because there's big rumors over like if Disney is actually trying to convince Akira Toriyama to let them make a live action Dragon Ball Z MCU like movie. It's really stupid. I explained this on Ranger Alliance.
Where was
So I explained this on Ranger Alliance. Don't worry for everybody
I'm
who is
not worried. I'm
freaking
just so
out.
confused that I was like, where was I to for all this? I missed this completely. What?
Yeah, so it was a random article in 2020,
Okay.
and then the very unfortunate thing is that it got picked up last year and this year by, like, I can't remember who the other one was, but again, we got this covered, picked it up, and then people started spreading it on TikTok like wildfire.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that it's the way journalism is today, and it's so
Yeah,
frustrating.
yeah,
It
and
bled
which
over. It
what
bled over from
sparked
sports. It bled over
it
from sports because that's where it initiated, where people were just making up this
Yeah.
person's going to be traded to this place and just throwing it out there. It will get wildfire for a day or two, then the team has to come out and say no, that's not happening, and then you just go on, and that person has a day where they get made fun of on Twitter, and then guess what? Next week they could put out another rumor, and that's essentially what the entertainment has become. But maybe we'll talk about that someday on Patreon as well. But we have a lot of stuff going on Patreon, and we can't thank you enough if you are a patron of ours. If you can't, if you could take 30 to 60 seconds to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice, that would be greatly appreciated. Clay, this was probably one of the longer intros, but you know what? It was kind of needed. So we kind of bantered through the intro, and that's a good thing. Let's get into a couple quick news items before we get into our main discussion tonight. And first and foremost, we got more Harley Quinn news that we're leading off the show with yet again. Clay, we have the 10 episodes. We have the titles for the episodes, and I'm going to give them to you now. Episode 301 is Har Ivy or Har Livy. Basically, their names combined.
It's the ship name. That's
yeah.
really.
Oh, yeah. I know. Been told about Trallison here. Episode 302, there's no Ivy in team. Episode 303, the 83rd annual Villy Awards. Oh my God, I think that could be a fantastic one with like Bane. I think Bane could be amazing there if he doesn't win the award.
I think that was a little bit kind of ironically teased at the fact that like we got like the footage in DC fandom, just the way they kind of portrayed it. It was very reminiscent of those random animated parts of the Oscars. You remember how like Toy Story would show up randomly at the Oscars and make a joke or whatever?
Yeah, okay, I can remember that.
So I could see like fandom when they tried to do that with it being all sketches and whatever. I can kind of see that being some sort of tease towards it, but I'm okay with anything villains because I think they definitely make the show. They definitely make probably the best episodes when they're all together.
That
And
was
I think
one of my favorite things about the first season was her trying to get into the Legion of Doom and just seeing all the scenes in the Legion of Doom headquarters was fantastic.
this
Like Bane sitting on a chair. How was that going to be funny to me? Yeah, it was hilarious.
this might be our backdoor pilot to the Kite Man show.
Ooh, that's a nice pickup there, Clay. That's a possibility that they could have that there. They could have
Yeah.
the 83rd one at his bar. Very well could. And that's where we find out where he is. Episode 304, A Thief, a Mole, and Orgy. That's going to be interesting. Episode 305, we teased this last week. Swamp Thing's appearance, I guess. It's a Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Episode 306, Joker, the Killing Vote.
Oh no, I could only imagine what that's gonna be.
Episode
in today's climate, I can only imagine what that's gonna be.
Oh my god, the jokes. Episode 307, Another Sharkly Adventure. Episode
Okay.
308, Batman Begins Forever.
Oh, this I'm pretty sure, wasn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong, and I think I am wrong. Already thinking about it. The Schumacher cut was Batman and Robin, not Forever, right?
No, Batman Forever. Batman Forever.
Okay. I am pretty sure they will make a joke.
Oh, 100% they'll make a shoot. They might even have the guy who was wearing the Snyder Cut shirt in the previous. They might have him wearing a Schumacher shirt.
Oh yeah.
They definitely could have that and I would laugh so hard. Episode 309, Climax at Jazza Plaza. And episode 310, The Horse and the Sparrow. That's the season finale. And like I was saying,
wait, there's only 10 episodes this season?
Yeah, that's all there's been is 10 every season.
No.
Yeah.
No way. Hold on.
Go check.
You go ahead and continue us off. And
so like I was saying to Clay earlier, the executive producer said that there's going to tease on Twitter. There's going to be some exciting announcement tomorrow, and I expect, because we got word that the season will be airing in July, I expect we'll get a trailer tomorrow. So that's kind of Chris says, I wonder if it will be split again. I don't think it was split last time, Chris.
All right. First season, 13 episodes.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Second season, 13 episodes.
Oh, sorry. My bad on that. But yeah, it wasn't split. I don't think it was split up, though. I think we just got the 13 episodes. Maybe it was because we had 3 at first. Could that have been?
First season was a split, and the second season was split because there was the same quote-unquote issue as Young Justice. It wasn't finished immediately. I'm pretty sure that was one of the issues, was that there was a small hiatus in season 2 because they needed to finish.
There was not a hiatus in season 1.
I thought they split it, though.
No, I'm looking at the air dates right now, and season 2 there was not a hiatus as well. April and May and June.
Yeah. Okay, so we're 1 for 1. You didn't
know
that there was 13
You
episodes.
correct me, I correct you. That's what we get. We eventually get to the correct information, listeners. But Chris, that's the Young Justice vibes going through the terrible decisions of splitting that up twice. I'm excited for this, Clay. I really love this show, and I think there's no holds barred. These kind of properties I don't think anyone's putting their hands in. And well, I won't say telling them no because of the Catwoman thing, but look how well that worked out for them when that's found out. I don't think they could axe anything that. Although I won't say that because I saw Gravity Falls guy.
An orgy, a thief, a mole, an orgy. A thief being Catwoman, orgy. She boom.
Could very well be. Could you might be right there. I like I said before, I'm super excited for this season, and one of the pictures that was teased was Ivy and Harley stood up in Court of Owl mass with all kinds of Court of Owls. So I'm like, yes, I'm ready for this. And the other bit of information, Stephen Weintraub from Collider says that he's heard that DC movies will not be at Comic-Con this year, the SDCC Comic-Con. Obviously, nothing is final until the schedule is released, but that's what he's hearing. Clay, do you think DC is going to pass on thing at San Diego Comic-Con? And if so, what do you think? Do you think that increases fandom or decreases it? Another
Yes
DC fan.
and yes and no.
Okay.
Again, let's be completely honest. We can never be too sure on any confirmation because we got a trailer saying that there is going to be 3 or 4 movies coming out this year, and then 2 weeks later, everything was pushed back.
Which essentially
So
tells us that they knew beforehand and didn't do anything until because there's no way they found that out 2 weeks later. Like, yeah, we're not going to be ready. No, listen, I don't buy that at all.
exactly. So the reason why I say yes and no is because I believe this statement also said that Sandman and Harley Quinn will be shown off at Comic-Con. Sandman is technically DC, Harley Quinn is definitely DC. So in a way, DC is going to be at Comic-Con. Now everything else, they are going to wait for fandom. The reason why I think that they will is because right now Comic-Con is coming out in next month. So it is way before DC fandom usually comes up. We had it the first year was in October, second year was in August. So maybe we'll get something in between there, September, but we know it's usually in the beginning of the fall season. On the game says MCU and DCEU, in my opinion, should stop going to San Diego Comic Con and have their own annual thing instead. And we totally agree. I think that
Yep.
the phenomenon that was DC fandom the first year was amazing. I think that they did a really good job doing a majority of those things. I hark back to uh, some of the complaints that the boys at the GV podcast have when they're looking at game shows. Forza always comes out with like a 15-minute showcase showing their movies. At DC fandom, we usually get 1 or 2 things that go off way too long. And that's the problem that they have. They just need to scrunch up that time, and I think it's perfect.
The fact that they had a schedule the first year and didn't have a schedule for the second year essentially, and you
Yeah.
were just waiting and wondering what was coming next was so. How do you take that kind of step back?
But
It was
it's
mind
the
boggling.
reason why though is because they were wanting people to be there for the entire show to showcase, oh, look, we had this many people the entire time. And because we all knew we were all waiting for the Batman trailer.
Yeah,
That
that
was the
burns
main
you though,
reason.
Clay, for the next one. You'll essentially get to the point where viewers won't watch that and they'll just wait for whenever it drops, it'll go up on social media and they'll just
But
watch it there.
but this is only going to be its third DC fandom. At what point are you burned? Are you burned last year, or are you going to get burned this year? You
Yeah, like I don't know. You're right. It could be too early too. I just think that they're only 1 for 2 with fandoms. I think that the first one was a huge success. I think that the
yes,
second one it was very weak
yes,
in terms
yes.
of content and layout.
But
Just stuff that if you have the schedule in the first one, going back to it is something that's hard to justify to your fans, in my opinion.
and then of course we also just got today, a couple hours before we even went live. We saw that Jim Lee has done his annual fandom art piece. Now again, he could do this and then Zaslav say, "Yeah, no, not going to happen this year."
How much
And
money is that
then
drawing making for me? You're out of there.
exactly. So that's gonna be interesting. I do think that it's going to happen. That's just me personally. Now, as far as how Jim Lee and everybody else convinced Zaslav, I think that's even more interesting. I want one day, and this is like 5 years from now, probably. I want to have a docu series over the first month of Zaslav taking over WB. That's what I want to see everything that took place.
You mean you want to see people get fired?
Oh hell yeah!
There's a great episode of King of the Hill where Dale Gribble is basically hired onto a company solely to fire people, and it's quite fun. So there's a short version on YouTube if you want to check that out. So, listeners, that is a little bit of the news. We have a couple little tidbits after this, but our main topic of this evening, threw this basically to Clay earlier today, which essentially was this is the idea I have here, Clay. We know that Zaslav is looking for someone to run DC Studios branch of Warner Brothers Discovery. We don't know who that person is right now, but when they inevitably find that person, they're going to have to make a decision. Do you reboot the DCEU as we know it today, or do you move forward? Do you move forward with the foundation that was already laid? Maybe do some retooling that you already had planned with the Flash, and just keep going with like Blue Beetle, Batgirl, Supergirl from the Flash, Black Adam, JSA. Do you keep going with those, or do you start brand new with new roles for everybody, including Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Superman, Batman, Flash, and anyone else we've seen to date? And what does that mean for the final few films before that DC film studio person takes over?
So, can I have an amalgamation of both? And the reason why I say that is because I think that there is going to definitely be. I've been saying this.
Please read that, because I thought that was really funny. Christopher says, "What if Zaslav justifies the cost by charging $10 or something to watch fandom?" I don't think I'll be paying that, Chris. Not gonna lie.
But I do think, and I've been saying this for months now, that I believe Zaslav is like, I don't care what was going on before. I'm the big man on campus now. I make all the decisions. And this decision is that we're going to start over new. And we're going to make exactly what Marvel has in our own way. We have seen the cancellation of what we used to say is some of DCCW's biggest shows. And I say biggest shows, I just mean like the wave of DC content on CW is very, very little now. So we've seen that. We have seen very little updates on almost anything that is coming out into production next year, or coming out in theaters next year. And I genuinely think that it is to retool the DCEU into a brand new franchise. Now, that does not mean that they cannot use older characters or older actors, should I say. But small little news that we got today kind of gives me not hope, but it adds more fuel to the fire to why I think this. You have it at the very end of our show notes tonight, but let me go ahead and just throw this out there.
Big smile when I saw this.
Zack Snyder's Justice League is.
That's what you're talking about. I thought you were talking about the picture that.
No. So Zack Snyder's Justice League is being pushed for digital content that you could purchase. Reason why I say this is everybody who wants to watch the movie can now buy it and watch it, whatever. They're going to have like extras and all of that. But I think this is also a marketing tool to be like, hey, they're satisfied. If they want to hate us and not have HBO Max, fine, whatever. We're making our new thing. Let's go. I think because all these streaming services for a while outside of Stranger Things, I feel like, and the Marvel Netflix stuff has never really been for home release. This is the first thing I believe on HBO Max that has been like home release that is original content.
I don't think so. I think there might have been like nothing. I can't say the scope because we're not talking like this is like a $300 million movie that was made for $70 million for HBO Max. So I'm trying to think. I think there were some exclusive just HBO Max films. I could be wrong though. I know there was like exclusive shows like the what's the airport? This what's the stewardess one, Kaylee
A flight
Kuko,
attendant.
flight attendant. So they were that was before Zack Snyder's Justice League, but that's a series too. So I think they even
But
called it limited series at the time, but that was before.
But did that have a physical release?
No, 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 no.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Like
no.
like this is the first HBO Max content that you can purchase digitally and say, "Hey, I own this."
Yeah.
So I do think that is a small indicator that we are moving into something completely new. You also mentioned a picture that we will be talking about later. But I think that they are going to be uh, doing away with a lot of stuff. Considering a topic that we have tried to avoid recently.
Well,
Uh,
because you get news articles come 4 days ago of how outrageous the sky is burning, and then you get news articles today that aren't shared 1/100th of as much, detailing the picture that I showed you and saying, where these accusations are coming from, they might be a little suspect. So let's all hold the pitchforks back a little bit, and that's happening a lot. But the counter stories don't get nearly as much traction as the initial stories because the headlines aren't nearly as fun. I can tell you that. The headlines, you're like, oh my God, what is next for the headlines for what Clay was alluding to?
and I will go ahead and say this: Derpy Gaming says honestly, just send the rights to Disney and put Kevin Feige. Call it a day. Enough with WB's reboots. I will have to disagree with that. Again, they don't need to Disney does not need to purchase DC. They have Lucasfilm, they have Marvel. They're doing great things over there. On the game, I also have to disagree with you. Greg Berlanti has the record as the producer with most live action series in a single season with 18 and has an expensive WB producer deal. Just let him take over the DCEU with a Feige role. I know that he did great things in those first few years of the DCCW, but I don't think that he has the I don't want to be like super rude. Uh I just don't think he would be able to handle something as massive as what we are kind of predicting Zaslav wants to do with the DCEU. Like I said, he's canceling these shows so that way he can have a movie and TV universe intertwined. Um, I'm not entirely sure if Berlanti would be able to make that happen. Um, Now, I could see Berlanti working with whoever is on top and doing maybe one show or getting a writing credit or something. But I don't think he is the guy we are looking for.
No, I do remember he was rumored to potentially be like throwing out like his own a DC property, like a film to work on, but that never materialized. That was quite a time ago.
Yeah.
Clay, I had to disagree with Al in the game as well. There's a couple points I want to point out with you too. You were talking about the CW falling apart, but that was happened long before that. The CW Netflix deal was not renewed because of HBO Max. They wanted content like exclusively for HBO Max. They didn't want to provide things for their competitors anymore. So they
Yeah.
canceled $1 billion Netflix, so that the revenue that was coming in was cut off, and then the shows were not profitable anymore. That's basically how that cookie crumbled. So I don't know if cutting off the DCECW was any sign that we're getting a cohesive extended universe. It doesn't hurt because, like you said, you have different versions of the characters running around in both live action and television that could confuse people unless you have everything linked together like you do in the MCU with the shows having movie characters in them. So you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, this makes sense. Whereas this is all over the place. You're like, Superman's here, wait, Superman's not in the movies, but they're not the same person. What is going on? So I can see that's the way they position, because just listening to Disney give the Gravity Falls guy shared some of the notes Disney gave him. And I'm just like,
It was insane.
insane. And the same thing with Superman, the execs back before all this asked, like, how can you save Superman? How can you stop Zod with Superman's ship? Didn't it blow up with Krypton? And you're like, uh, he flew it to just to Earth. There's like
You
3
will
minutes
not
of
let
that.
that go.
Because
You
that's
will
the
not let
dumbest
that
thing
go.
I've ever seen. If you're watching a movie, like take a piece of paper, write down some things. I see some reactors do that so they don't forget things. They write down things that happen throughout the episode so that when they're discussing it after, that's what that's what good reaction videos do. They discuss it after they're done reacting to it. They don't discuss it in the middle of reacting. They react, then they discuss what they just reacted to. So, in fact, little tip for you reaction videos, just from someone who watches them at times. But I'm of the aspect. It would probably be easy to reboot Clay because, like Aquaman, Jason Momoa can't have many films left on his deal after this will be his second one. He did a Justice League as well. He made an appearance in Peacemaker.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm assuming he doesn't have a whole load of appearances left on his contract. Same thing for Gal Gadot. She's been in 2 Wonder Woman. She's been in Justice League. She's been in BBS. So, how many appearances does she have left? That's another thing. She's doing Wonder Woman 3. That's already on the docket. So,
Yeah.
so those can be easy. You just don't have to renew their contracts. But they're also the two biggest stars of this DCEU right now. So, you know me. I want more Henry Cavill as Superman, selfishly. But with the picture that we'll talk about in a little bit in the news, I want that. I want more of that. But I also want them to be based on the characters we have now. Like, I would love for that Supergirl to interact with the Superman that we have here. So, just some
Yeah.
frustrating things. I think that regardless, you're going to have people pissed off at you, whatever you decide. But it's going to be tough to turn. I think it depends on how successful this run of films is now that we have coming up. I think that'll determine where he goes
So real
or
quick,
her.
I want to highlight All in the Game's 2 comments. Let's do this one first and go back to the other one. All in the Game in talks of Berlanti, he says, I'd give him a chance because he has had to make do with the CW budget and restraints. I have high hopes for his HBO Green Lantern show. That probably isn't happening. Like like
And there's
again,
like 17 people that supposedly that's that show. I've heard Guggenheim is a big part of that show. Jeff Johns as well. So
they've said that they are like getting close to the finale of that show, but we have literally only gotten 2 castings in a show that is supposed to be an anthology with multiple characters. Like, can you surprise me at fandom? Yeah, you could. But again, this is going to be a new regime. This was
they
something
were
that was
writing Clay. They were writing the like they were still writing this, and then Zaslav came out and said, "No HBO Max originals will be made for over a certain amount of money." How much money did you think? Because remember what they said too. They said that HBO Max originals, some of them were just given carte blanche, like free budget. So, what do you think with the VFX? They probably were like, "We're going balls wild. We're gonna have to spend a bunch of money. They get $2 billion on content here." This was when AT&T was rocking it. And you turn around now, and I don't know how you're going to make a Green Lantern show for cheap. I really don't.
yeah. Like I don't think it is possible to go as cheap as Zaslav probably wants to go to make
with
a
with
Green
that
Lantern
character. Yeah,
core movie. That's the thing. If it was a Green Lantern show, cool. About one Green Lantern, you could probably do it. But if you're making a Green Lantern core show that's going to have multiple different alien races and all of these different things, I think it does have a big budget. It needs a big budget. So, with him saying that, he also states, who are, or he asks, who are your picks then as a producer in that role, in the Kevin Feige role?
I would look at Kevin Feige's right hand person first and foremost, or like a couple people that is in his inner circle to potentially take a look. I would like to see maybe Jim Lee in that role, or part of that role. I'd like for him to be like an advisor for creative, but I don't know. Like, I don't think he can take the business side. That was part of a problem with Jeff Johns as well. Was had more of an eye for the creative than for business, in my opinion. Even though the changes like to Suicide Squad and stuff, but I still enjoy that film. I think that I would go with Kevin Feige's like right hand person, whoever's Kevin Feige's second in command if you could pluck them from that operation.
I would say, who was it that we were talking about a couple weeks ago that got laid off and then Disney took him up? I would say him alongside with Jim Lee. There you go.
Clay, he seems like I know the guy you're talking about, the older guy that they first let go from WB when they came, like Toby came in and or somebody came in, they got rid of him, and then he went over to uh, Disney and like Spearline, like he was like very helpful for everything. And I think he would be one of those people that would bring in a Jim Lee to help him.
So Chris Evans says, I'd consider a team of Jim Lee and Kevin Smith or Lee and James Gunn, but this is probably why fans aren't allowed to make decisions. Yes, it is. Chris, I love your enthusiasm about Kevin Smith and even James Gunn, but James Gunn has already said that he is not somebody who he's not a person that wants the power of making a cinematic universe. And Kevin Smith, I think he's too much of a fan. I know that he has done very well with his episodes on The Flash, and
He
I
doesn't
know,
write those though. He doesn't
yeah,
write those, or it's
and I'm
already a
not,
well-oiled machine. He's even saying like on those, like, yeah, I do the very minimal work on that. Like
yeah,
that's
but
already a
again,
well-oiled machine.
like him and Lee, you're having two creatives and no businessmen. Yes, Kevin Smith is a businessman because he's made his own movies, he has his own company, he has his own comic shop. Like he has worked with business, but you were throwing around billions of dollars. Like I just don't think Kevin Smith has the experience to be able to throw around billions of dollars.
I will say this: I would bring Kevin Smith in to do an animated property for DC after seeing what he did with He-Man.
Masters of the Universe, yeah.
I would bring him in to not only just do an animated property, I would bring him in to run an animated universe. Like I really think, especially because there's a lot of room to play, and we've been teasing with
with
DC.
his reputation with DC, I think that it would be appropriate for WB to at least approach him for a small project for
Yeah,
sure.
you could even do like a small movie project, but I was thinking especially after the success of He-Man Masters of the Universe for Netflix, there's getting a second season for that. So I think that he might even feel more comfortable that way rather than having a 30 or $40 million budgeted movie to
Yeah,
do. So I think that, and that's less of a opportunity to be torn to shreds critically too. I know he doesn't care anymore, but animated, like he was really praised for He-Man. So, and I just think that he knows what people like in terms of animation. So I he won me over with that. So that's what I would do with Kevin Smith. Because I think you're right. Kevin Smith, I think, might go too far with things. He can get too
well, I
overexcited and be like,
because I will say this as a comic fan, I think that he has the heart for these things. Um, I was off and on about his Green Arrow run. I didn't like his Batman run, but go back to something very, very recent, which is Detective Comics 1000. His story that he put in there, it was like he was born to write Batman. It was a perfect. It was probably a 10 out of 10 Batman story in that anthology book of Detective 1000. I loved it. It added something new to the Batman mythos that nobody has ever done before, and it was amazing. But again, he's on the creative side. Let him do stuff like that. If you want him to have those types of ideas, have him as a consultant. And I think that's something that Zaslav needs to also do with this new reboot, retool, whatever you want to call it. He needs to be consulting Jim Lee, which is why I say Jim Lee needs to be a part of this team so that Jim Lee can also go to his umbrella of DC Comics and grabbing these writers that have been writing these characters for years and say, hey, we're going to pay you this much to consult during this movie, and you will get a partial writing credit, and all of this other stuff, as well as getting paid, uh, which is something that Marvel needs to do as well. So, a lot
oh yeah,
more than
that's
$1,000.
it looks awful sometimes to see that. I'm honestly in the retool camp, and I would love just give me a different Batman and we'll keep everybody the rest because Ben Affleck doesn't want to be Batman anymore. But I want Superman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman to keep going on. I want the Batgirl and Supergirl and I Michael Keaton's Batman. I still want all the stuff. I'm really excited for what we have coming forward. So I hope that it's just not one-offs because we're getting those films are already out. But
On the game says you need to be able to plan out and execute and market multiple movies and shows in a giant cinematic universe and manage budgets accordingly. It requires a lot of skills, which is why I said there needs to be two people. I know that Zaslav is saying, "Oh, I want to have one person," but I still think that it needs to be a two-man job.
you can just get an advisor if you want the business person and get the creative. The creative can be an advisor, and the business person can handle. And on the game, it gets to multiple movies and shows after we're like people. There was 28. Like the MCU didn't just start 2 years ago either. 2008, Iron Man came out, so like
Yeah.
it takes a while to build to that giant like point. At a certain point, like they were just putting out a couple films first to try it. Like they were.
But also one thing that I think Marvel did with Kevin Feige was they made their plan
And stuck to
with
it.
they made their plan and stuck to it. I think that realistically they waited until after Incredible Hulk to really see like, hey, is this grasping people? I think they knew by the time Iron Man had come out, but they had planned for Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, and then let's see what moves forward. So I think that DC, that WB, needs to make at the very minimum a 4-movie plan, push for that 4 movies, and then just keep going. Like just don't stop. Because if you do, it starts going downhill.
That yes, it's just like the MCU movies. When did we know that Avengers was coming out? I'm just trying to remember because a couple of the movies stood on their own before we knew that because it was kind
We
of teased almost like it was going to be Hulk versus Iron Man at one point.
well, no. We knew the Avengers were coming during Iron Man at
Yes,
the
you're
very
right
end.
because the post credit.
Because
Yeah,
he's like,
I
I'm
was
going to talk
wondering
to you
what
about the
I forgot
Avengers
about.
initiative.
Yeah, I thought I was talking about Hulk, but that was in the next one when he showed
Yeah,
up. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that too. I like for it to be like planned out well, but I just like don't want it to be carbon copy of the MCU. I don't know. I want it planned like that, but just creatively just keep what makes DC DC.
Yeah.
And you can insert your jokes there about what makes DC DC nowadays. I'm talking to you, Brent. So, Clay, we have a couple little news tidbits before we get out of here. You brought up one already, which is Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's a digital release on July 19th. So that it's already gotten physical release too as well. I guess the part about it getting physical release is because there's no HBO Max in countries like mine. Hello. So it's cool to get digital. I thought I had a digital code with mine, with my physical purchase. So
Yeah.
I guess it sucks for people who didn't. I don't know. It just surprised me. I thought it was available digitally to everybody. And like I was telling you earlier too this week, Harley Quinn, or last week actually, Harley Quinn, James Gunn responded to someone on Twitter who said, please bring back Harley Quinn in another project. And he replied, not a bad idea, which like I think there's a possibility that she could show up in either the Amanda Waller show or a second season of Peacemaker. I think it would be great, especially you kind of set up the bar pretty high with guest appearances with the season finale of Peacemaker season 1. I think having Harley show up sometime in season 2 would be pretty cool.
I think she shows up in the Amanda Waller because
Ooh.
I think, and I may be wrong on this. Somebody please, S Bubs, you're the guy in the chair, like Snell likes to say. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the Amanda Waller show is going to be filmed before season 2 of Peacemaker, or has the Amanda Waller show not been officially announced yet, and Peacemaker 2 is coming out first?
I'm not sure on that, but like the events, the ending of Peacemaker season one feeds right into what Amanda Waller's predicament is. So I would imagine
Yeah.
that will come first.
Yeah, so I do think that Harley Quinn will most likely make an appearance in the Amanda Waller show first, just because, like you said, and like we said, the synopsis states that, or the rumored synopsis states that Amanda Waller will be going after the people who are witnesses, and technically, Harley Quinn is a witness. So, I think it would be very, very cool to see Deathstroke try to kill Harley Quinn. Um, and that would be the appearance. And whether it be a whole episode of Deathstroke trying to kill Harley Quinn or just like a small little snippet, I do think it would be very wise and valuable to have her in there. As
It's
Pub
fun.
says, pretty sure that Amanda Waller's show has been reported by top tier trades, but hasn't been officially mentioned. Unlike Peacemaker season 2.
I thought James Gunn mentioned something about it, but I think maybe he didn't say it by name.
Yeah.
Maybe it could have been it. But yeah, anyway, I would love to see more Harley Quinn. I absolutely adore her. And the final little bit of news, Clay, we have a picture of Batgirl and Supergirl together. Leslie Grace shared this on Twitter where she was with the Supergirl actress Sasha Kaye with the caption, "We're saving all the universes. You heard me." I when I saw this picture, I instantly thought I would love to see you two in the world's finest, and I haven't seen either of you in either of your roles yet. Just the passion you have for these characters has me in. So, what do you think about this, Clay? As you're probably the most excited I've seen for both those characters as well.
I'm very excited about this. They have taken several photos. They are clearly hanging out. Um, I I think it was on Twitter also on that feed. Somebody put a picture of Art Germ's art of Supergirl and Batgirl, and then that picture side by side, and says, "I could totally see it. I do as well." Uh, And I know that this, like, I'm not entirely sure. I know that you mentioned it in our DC Alliance chat, or maybe even our personal chat, that Sholo has
Yeah,
also teased something
he shared a
as
picture, and it was him, Supergirl, and Batgirl, and it had the Young Justice uh,
logo on
words
there.
logo
Yeah.
on there, and I was like, "Oh my god, yes,
And
push for
I
this."
I need to be following Sholo. I know he is more active on Instagram. I am not very active on Instagram. Trying to
Usually,
be.
when it's kind of newsworthy, it usually bleeds into Twitter.
Twitter.
But you're
Yeah.
right, Instagram is really the place to see. Like I missed the Tom Hardy tweet at Instagram. What's what do you is it do you Insta? Like you tweet, you post for Facebook, do you post for Instagram or is it I don't know.
I I don't know, because the thing is, like, Instagram, I got off of Instagram when they introduced stories, because I was somebody who used to use Snapchat, and then I was like, "Nah, I don't like this anymore." But then, like, Instagram became your place to, like, do everything, because they also have Reels now, which is just a copycat of TikTok. And
Facebook does, yeah, it's hilarious. Everyone's
it's
copying all the successful things about the apps.
exactly. So, as far as like there being a Young Justice, I don't think it'll be Young Justice. If anything, if we can see success out of Sasha Kaye's character with Batgirl's character, Leslie Grace, and Sholo, I could see this being a new generation of a league. Um, and I would be okay with that. It would be a new approach. It would be uh, new and fresh, because these actors, as well as characters, are young, so you can keep them for a while, which is also a good thing. So I think that might be a possibility.
I wouldn't be against that. I personally want to see a Young Justice team in live action. Like I think that them working hand in hand with the Justice League would be like fantastic. Like you don't even need to see the Justice League, but them doing missions, you could have various league members be a part of their team too. It, when I saw that picture, Clay, I was like, "Oh my god, this is everything that I want like please get to this point. And like you said, it has to be successful for us to get anything extra from this. I think that Zaslav is betting numbers, and if you show him a successful Batgirl, successful Blue Beetle, successful Flash movie, I think that we'll get more of these characters. If they're not successful, if they're just average at best in terms of financial success, I think we could theoretically get an entire reboot, entire system reboot. Be like, this is our first point, and we're going forward from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, listeners, that is everything that we have tonight. Clay, we managed to get an hour out of a whole lot of
really almost
nothing.
nothing.
A whole lot of nothing.
Very good discussion. I'm glad that the chat was very lively on the game.
Yes.
S-Dubs, thank you so much. Also, Christopher Evans and Derpy Gaming, thank you for being here. Because we, like we said, had almost nothing to talk about today.
And we'll have
next
a trailer next week.
Yes,
and
at least the
our
trailer.
Fallout. Maybe we'll save the Fallout from season 2 of Superman and Lois for a DC Alliance main show discussion, and we'll just review the episode.
Yes, but something that I want to go ahead and pitch while some of our patrons are in the chat. And for some who will listen to this later, I do want to go ahead and throw out there a discussion that me and Heinz were having this weekend. If we do have another week like this, we would most likely be putting out a poll on our Patreon, and I think that we could see, we usually by Tuesday or Wednesday, that's usually when the DC stuff drops. When we are not seeing that stuff drop, we know that we have to start grasping at straws. And so we want to start
even really grasping at straws. More so, we got to have a discussion of some points on DC. Like, this was something that is kind of topical right now.
Yes.
But what Clay is saying is, like, when we have slow news weeks, we're going to throw some discussion topics to you guys in multiple selection form, A, B, C, or D. You'll pick the topic that you guys want us to discuss, and we may even throw that out there next week or the week after. And then when we have a slow week, we'll take the topic, because it doesn't have to always be what is going on right now. We could throw out a topic like, what is your favorite DC film and why? And you want to know that from us. And we'll spend 10, 15 minutes talking, both of us, about what our. So we're just going to throw out some options for patrons so that when we have slow weeks, we'll get discussions you guys want us to have. We'll get them in there.
Yeah, exactly. But that is it for the show. Thank you guys for lasting this long. Of course, you can always find me at FanboyClay on Twitter. Go into the link tree in my bio there. You can find the links to all the shows that I host, that including DC Alliance, Batman News Weekly, Ranger Alliance, and of course, Star Wars Alliance.
And you can find me on Twitter at Travis_156. You can drop me a line. We can chat about DC anytime. I also host superhero discussions on the network. Like I said earlier in the intro, we're into Spectacular Spider-Man right now, and goddamn, do I love that show. Clay, it's been fun. I'll see you for some Superman and Lois talk later this week. We have a season finale. Woohoo!
Yes.
Later,
see you
listeners.
Guys.